Welcome back. This is Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneier. That's Jacob Gibbs. And as you know, if you've been listening to Beyond the Box Score this season, we like to dive a little deep, and that means changing things up in season. And today we wanted to take a look at different run games from the run scheme, from a blocking standpoint, the actual offensive linemen and how they're playing and their impact in the game, and then the running backs running behind these lines. What does it all mean, and how will it impact your fantasy teams moving forward? So today's show is all about the run game, all about the offensive lines. So whose line, or whose run game, I should say, Jacob, are you most excited to talk about today?
Most excited to talk about? The Commanders are dominating, and that's exciting for our boy Bill. I'll go with that. I think I've almost kind of gravitated more towards the scary lines is where I'm at right now.
Okay. Yeah, because we want to see what's going on and if there's something that can change. So where are we getting started today? Which player? It looks like we're starting with Chase Brown, who's probably the most scary player in fantasy right now. I just saw him dealt yesterday for Rashid Shaheed and DeAndre Swift in my home league, and the Chase Brown manager panic traded that one. Where are you at? Where are we starting with the Bengals run game?
Yeah, if I can share my screen here, I'm going to show you guys the FFT newsletter. This just got sent out today with rankings. I'm also looking at, I try to do a deep dive on a player or two or three, however much time there is for it at the beginning of each week. Somebody that had a really big week or really bad week or whatever, and just try to contextualize what we're looking at. And Chase Brown is who we dug into this week. He's averaging 2 yards per carry. And yeah, fantasy managers are panicking. They're trading him away for DeAndre Swift, Rashid Shaheed. They're considering dropping Chase Brown, who was somebody they took in round 2, round 3. And so did just want to give a little bit of context here. Last year, he averaged 1.24 yards before contact per rush. Through 3 games this year, it's negative 0.06 yards before contact per rush. So he and Ashton Genty are the only running backs in the NFL who are getting hit behind the line of scrimmage on average. Not ideal. And so that's resulted in 2 yards per rush. He was much more efficient than that each of the first couple of seasons. He is a big play running back, so we could see this rate rise with just a run or two for sure. We are dealing with a small sample size here, but his avoided tackle rate is down as well. 21% last year. It's 14.5% this year. And so it's like, well, this is a Chase Brown problem, right? He's just, there were some questions about his talent to begin with. He was a later round pick in the NFL draft, round 5 pick. So, maybe this is just who he is. He's not that good. I will say that running back statistics are very tricky. They're probably the hardest. This is maybe the hardest position to get a good feel for the actual talent of the player. There's so much that goes on at the line of scrimmage with, 5-on-5, 6-on-6, however many people are up in the box there. So this stat here is when given at least 1 yard or more before initial contact. Chase Brown's numbers, his rushing success rate, his EPA per rush, basically identical to what we saw from him last year. His yards per rush isn't quite as high because he hasn't broken a long run, but overall, like he's looks pretty similar if he actually has a little bit of room to run when there's any sort of blocking for him. But we just haven't seen that at all. And I noticed when I looked at league-wide numbers for running backs when they're hit behind the line of scrimmage, the Bengals were way, way worse. The only team that was worse was the Texans. And so that made me curious about this. So I looked and I watched all of Chase Brown's runs where he was hit behind the line of scrimmage. And on so many of these, dude, he's just getting swarmed.
Yep.
Which is an offensive line thing for sure. But it also, I think, has something to do with these defenses that he's faced. In week 1, it was the Browns, who the Ravens were hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 2/3 of their runs against the Browns. And that's the lowest rate for any team that's faced the Browns. The other teams had a higher rate. That's the Ravens and the Packers. Derrick Henry the Ravens rushed 14 times for 30 yards, the running backs in that game against the Browns. Green Bay's running backs against the Browns, 22 rushes for 55 yards. Next week was Jacksonville. They have a new defensive coordinator. They've been much, much better against the run. All this is in the newsletter if you want the details. The Vikings, Brian Flores, a lot of blitzes that shoot those gaps, and he was just overwhelmed behind the line of scrimmage. Your avoided tackle rate's going to be low, and that there's not like you can't. It's hard to avoid a tackle when you have 2 or 3 guys on you right away. So I did want to bring this up in reference to Chase Brown because, like, in terms of the usage, it's basically where it was last year. So I don't know if he'll hold the job. If he continues to average 2 yards per carry, there's a real chance that he gets rug pulled for Taj Brooks or starts to lose some of this work or whatever. This upcoming schedule isn't much easier either. So I don't want to just say like everything's okay. You got the round 2, 3 guy that you drafted. But I will say it's 3 weeks against really tough defenses. We've never seen a team average, negative yards before contact. In fact, the lowest we've seen over the past 10 years is 0.7 yards before contact. He's at, negative. Only 9% of teams over the past 10 years have even been at 1 or lower yards before contact per running back rush. So naturally, this is going to improve throughout the year. And based off what we've seen from Chase Brown when he's had room to run this year, I would guess that he'll probably look pretty similar to last year in terms of efficiency. So all I really need for him for fantasy is to get the targets, which definitely could come. So that's where I'm at with Chase Brown. And that's kind of what we're doing today, is trying to help contextualize what we've seen with these offensive lines. Schedule plays a lot into it, but definitely offensive line play does too. Rush scheme, that stuff we're going to look at. So yeah, Chase Brown, there you go. Do you feel any better? I know you drafted a lot of them.
I did draft a lot of Chase Brown. Do not feel any better based on that. I mean, I feel better based on the idea that he's looked the same, but from a fantasy standpoint, situation is so important. And I love that you brought up the context of the matchups, because we'll get into it a little bit later, but just watching some of the cut-ups you sent me, the Patriots defense against the Steelers run game, like that was the perfect scheme and game plan by the Patriots defense against an outside zone heavy run scheme. And they were penetrating and just beating those Steelers defenders to the spot, getting into the backfield and cutting off runs on the front side. And that's made it impossible. And so we'll get into all of that. But as far as the Browns go, I look ahead, Jacob, and I think about, the Bengals go with Chase Brown. I look ahead and I think, well, they got Broncos this week, Lions the week after, who played much better last week, I thought, against the run, the Packers, and then the Steelers and Jets. And the Jets actually played the run really well against the Bucs, which we'll get into when we get to Bucky Irving. So I don't think it's going to get any better from a run standpoint. It could, let me contextualize that, or let me clarify that. It will definitely get better than what it's been, right? Like you said, there's been no team that's had negative yards before contact like they've had, but it's not going to get better to the extent where I think Brown will become a benefactor for fantasy. Sure, maybe we can get some increase in the targets in the passing game, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I look at him as like a back end RB2, more of a flex play. The one thing that's interesting though is like, will he lose some of his? Will we see more of like what we saw last week, where like Taj Brooks gets more involved, and obviously Pirine I think is hurt now, so I don't know about that. That could put him into play of being like one of these like guys you don't even want to play in a flex. I don't think it's going to get to that point, but the touchdowns are not going to be what they were last year. The passing game may be similar or worse, and I just don't think the run success is going to be there for him. So very low on Chase Brown rest of season for me.
Let's stick with another little buff boy. I want to hear what you saw when you watched. Did you get a chance to watch Jordan Mason and the Vikes?
I did watch Jordan Mason.
They've been running pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
How are we feeling?
So last game was the first game back with Christian Darrisaw, their star left tackle, and I thought he made a massive difference in that game. But then I went back and watched all the snaps of the positive rush plays from every Vikings game this year, dating back to the Bears game and the Atlanta game. And it's just so interesting. Like, they're the only team I've seen so successful running toss crack. And that's like such a hard play to time up as an offensive line, but they do it well. And one thing I noticed is they're a team that ran on these plays that we charted, and these are the successful run plays. They had a rush success rate of 68.4%, which is really astronomical when you look at the rest of the teams. And 42% of it was outside zone, but they run more man gap than most teams because they're able to. A little bit of mix of counter and a little bit of like G lead and even like leading with the tackle. Interesting concepts in the run game, but one thing I noticed about them, which makes them so successful, is that they do an excellent job climbing off of double teams, the Minnesota offensive line, and getting to the second level. That's something that's so difficult to do, and I see so many failures. Like just watching Bucky Irving and the Bucs last week, it was such a nightmare from that standpoint. So I think with Mason, he's a great fit for this offensive line. But as I went back, I looked at the Aaron Jones snaps too, and Aaron Jones was running well behind this line too. Just a different kind of runner. Some of Mason's best runs were when he just trusted on those toss crack plays and on those outside zone plays that the Vikings offensive line will block the edge, and he got it, and he got the edge. So this was a team, I remember tweeting about it, Jacob, when I watched that game against Chicago in week 1. I was like, they just really took over from a run standpoint in the second half of that game. And I think we'll see a lot of games like that moving forward. It just makes Jordan Mason a much better player for fantasy than I expected he would be during the Carson Wentz era. But it's going to be a big test coming up because you got the Steelers this week and then the Browns the week after. So then we'll see, if that offensive line can continue to block the way it has.
The toss crack, the outside stuff is interesting because like that's not. I think of him as like the up the middle grinder.
Right.
That's kind of what he looks
He's
like,
not.
but he does have a lot of creativity. Like he comes from an outside zone scheme, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he's. I think they can run the offense through him for now.
They have to.
Yeah, so that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. Who was next? Oh, Trey Benson. I want to talk about Trey Benson for
Mhm.
sure. So on runs that gained at least 1 yard before contact, Benson is averaging 11.9 yards per rush. And he does have one really, really long run, but even if you take that away, it's still 8.9 yards per rush on runs that gained at least 1 yard before contact. I bring that up because Arizona's line has not played very well. We're going to get into the rankings, and you guys will hear where I've got them, some of the stats to back that up. James Conner was struggling. We've seen this run game work, though, in the past. And if you remember last year, it was a really slow start for the run game, too. And you might remember me raving about all the cool concepts that they were trying to institute with all the polling action that they were doing, the pin poll leading stuff to
Yep.
get Benson out on counters and stuff like that. And I think that fits his skill set really well. I think what made me so curious about it last year was they instituted it once they drafted Benson. And then I looked into Benson's collegiate data, and he had the highest percentage of his runs come on counters of any running back drafted in the NFL since the time I have the data available, which is dating back to 2017. So, like, the counter thing seems to be something that's here specifically for him. And so now, it's year 2 of them trying to do this more and more. It might be a bit of a slow start, but if they can get him some room to run, he can just start ripping off chunk plays is basically where I'm at with it. The run game was not fun to watch in these first few weeks because sometimes guys, it's like they don't like it just doesn't feel quite cohesive. There's
Yep.
players pulling like bursting through the offensive line unblocked, untouched because they're like trying to get up to the next level. But it's like, whose assignment was that guy though? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing that that can really be done. Like on a few of these plays,
Well, that's also the risk when we're running some like man gap
yeah,
schemes. Yeah.
on a few of these plays, Benson or Connor can make them miss and then create something, but like often they're getting blown up. And so you're going to see
Yep.
Benson probably be, I mean, he already by nature is kind of boom bust as a runner. But I do think we're going to see some big booms, but there might be some weeks where it's not efficient on the ground. So it's going to be really key that he keeps the pass game work that he had taken in this backfield when it was him and Connor. I think we might see DeMarcado kind of step into that role a little bit. So we'll see. That'll be a really important note in terms of week 4 usage. But yeah, leaders, if I do remove runs of 40 plus, which he only had one, but if I remove that one run and remove everybody's runs of 40 plus and look at the leaderboard for yards per carry on runs of 1 or more yards before contact, which it's a fun list. Number 1, Scatterboot.
Oh, wow.
Scatterboot, 10.2 yards per rush when he has at least 1 yard blocked before contact.
Wow.
Number 2 is Derrick Henry, 9.4. Achan, number 3, 8.9. Benson is tied with him at 8.9. And David Montgomery, man, that was such a freaking good game. He's at 8.6. So clearly playing better than he did as a rookie. And I think that there's hope that the offensive line could improve. I feel like the game is really slowed down for Benson, which is huge because we know he has this skill set. It was really hard watching him last year. Like it just felt like it was moving too fast and he couldn't make up his mind on stuff. He wasn't seeing stuff very well, but it feels better so far. So if the offensive line comes together, it could be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think that was a key factor. The Cardinals discussed this offseason, the pacing behind the line of scrimmage for Benson. It had to improve, and that's just the game slows down. He's a year into it, which is awesome. And that Scatterboo stat is so interesting because on film, at least, that week 3 game was the first time the Giants generated anything in the run game as far as the blocking goes. And a lot of that was because the Chiefs played too high to take away, and too high with a shade over Neighbors to take away Neighbors. But I think, and Nick thinks that that's going to happen rest of season for teams that play the Giants. I think they're going to play a very similar game plan to what Spags did, just too high with shell over the top on Neighbors, which is going to lead to these great opportunities and boxes for Scatterboo. Just a note, because I'm very high on him for this time period. We'll see what happens when Tracy comes back. Just quick shout out to the chat. Somebody in here said, and I lost the name now, that I have a too serious face on when Jacob is talking. I don't know what that means. I'm trying to focus on what he's telling me, and he's got a lot of stats. I will try to be less serious when listening to Jacob, though, if I can. But I do want to shout out the chat because you guys are really active again. I really am so appreciative of how often you guys show up. Same names I see in the chat a lot. really supporting our show. These comments really go a long way. Hitting the like button right now, that's the number one thing you can't do. So roll your hand over that mouse and just click like. If you don't have a mouse or whatever you're using, we need a like button ASAP here. And then finally, leave us a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. I actually just got an email from Claire, who works with us, an amazing person who helped us drive our draftathon, really drove the draftathon efforts this year, in my opinion. Well, she organized the hell out of it and we did a great job. She let me know that there is a way to find the Spotify comments. So I am going to figure that out. I didn't get a chance to read her whole email. It's been a busy day, but we will get to Spotify as well. But we're going to take a quick break and we're going to get back into some more offensive lines and some run games.
They want to take this place from us. My family is in danger. My wife is lost to me, and I don't have time.
1923, new season now streaming exclusively on Paramount Plus.
I've got a cool stat that will segue into our next player.
Okay.
We are professionals here. All right, so I'm curious what you think about this. This is a new stat that I've become super curious about in the last couple of weeks. It's time spent behind the line of scrimmage. So we're talking about running backs, like before they get to the line. Leading the way this year, 3.11 seconds behind the line of scrimmage on average is Saquon Barkley, which I think is very interesting. His rate was 2.77 seconds last year. So that's a pretty significant difference. And that is who we're going to talk about next. Just behind Saquon at 3.1 seconds is Trey Benson. I think that kind of makes sense, especially the way they've been drawing stuff up with the run game. James Conner's typically been pretty high in this stat. Zach Charbonnet has consistently high in this stat, which surprised me a little bit, 3.09 seconds. And he's been at like 2.9 or higher since he's entered the NFL. DeAndre Swift, 3.02. We've talked about this being a problem. And then this next group is very interesting, all about 2.9, 2.95, something in there. Ashton Genty, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Kenneth Walker. And those three have been at 2.8 seconds or higher every season as a pro. So I don't think that this is necessarily a bad thing to have it's not, time to throw like a quarterback where it's like almost always it's bad if it's high unless they're scrambling or whatever. I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up to you and just kind of posit that for you to think about. You don't even have to comment on it, but just like the players that are up there are interesting. It's interesting to me that Bijan, Gibbs, and Walker have been up there every year. Walker doesn't surprise me. And then that is where Genty's at. And we know that the line is not playing well. But Saquon in particular stood out because his rate's noticeably different than it was last year. A couple other, this is all per next gen stats, by the way. A couple other Saquon stats. Only Derrick Henry had a higher rushing yards over expectation per rush last year than Saquon. This year, his rate is actually negative 0.32, which is middle of the pack, slightly below. By the way, Benson has the second highest rate. It's a small sample size, but noteworthy. The guys at the top are David Montgomery, number one, then Benson, then Judkins, then Bill, then Jordan Mason, then James Cook. I know you like that list.
Oh, yeah.
But any thoughts on any of this as somebody who's watched a ton of Saquon?
Yeah, and especially this year, you gave me a nice cut up to watch of him. I think part of why that number is high is because the Eagles do run a lot of counter runs, and that just requires some time to let it develop. But you could see there's a little bit more hesitation behind this current group up front. And I think part of the reason is, at least in my mind, he's playing right now, but Landon Dickerson is playing through an injury and just not looking like the normal player that we're used to seeing, in my mind, at the left guard position. And then Tyler Steen's a player who they've groomed and tried to get in there as if it would be no drop off. But I feel like from what I've seen, Tyler Steen has really not played great so far this season for them. So they don't have the same push they've had in past in the interior. And just from watching some of those snaps, it feels like on some of these counter runs, they're getting walled off and back to the inside. And then at that point, like the second level defenders are reaching and they're getting up there and making the plays. So I've seen a lack of success with the Eagles run game that stems, in my mind, from them playing so much shotgun. Like, I just think a lot of these run games I've watched here, like we went over the Vikings offensive line, right? The Eagles, and we'll go over the Steelers. A lot of the least successful runs are coming from shotgun, and the most successful runs when we look at the Vikings offensive line are under center. And so that's just something that stands out to me because the Eagles are not a team I expect to go under center at any point with Jalen Hurts at quarterback.
Let me run you through who's using shotgun runs the most.
Okay.
So at the top is the Commanders. This is what they do, and they're crushing on it. And then it's the Falcons. That's kind of what they do as well.
Yeah.
And it's continuing to go well. But then you have the Eagles at 75% shotgun runs. And so the Commanders are averaging 5.6 yards per shotgun run. It's 5 yards per shotgun run for the Falcons, and the Eagles are at 3.6. And so the teams that are running a lot of shotgun runs and those shotgun runs are not going well are the Eagles, the Saints, 71% of the time, 3.6 yards per rush, though. And the Bengals, 66. I know you hate that run game. 66% of the runs coming from shotgun, and they're averaging 2.9 yards per shotgun run. And then another one is the Raiders. The Raiders are at 55% and only averaging 2.8 yards per shotgun run. We would like to see maybe some more under center looks there. The teams that are not are on the opposite end. The Rams, only 10% of the runs coming from the shotgun. The Patriots and the Seahawks and the Lions, all at 20% or lower, but have not found a lot of success on the ground so far. Well, I'm sorry, I'm looking at their shotgun rate. I was like 1.8 yards per rush. That's not right.
Yeah.
Lions, they've sucked when they've run out of shotgun, but they don't do it hardly ever.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, that does not look right. And then the Bills are the other team at 21%, only 21% of the runs coming out of the shotgun.
Yeah, and some of those run games you mentioned with the fewest shotguns are some of the best in the NFL. And this is not a precursor to a run game. Like you can be successful running out of shotgun, but the Eagles are trying a lot of counter with pullers out of shotgun. And it just seems to me like watching it, this is what I charted from the cut up you gave me, is it's just not working. They're not getting there in time. And Saquon Barkley is a little bit hesitant to trust it, I think. And he's, in my mind, trying to win on the interior of these runs with cutbacks. And that's where I think they're losing a lot, that those three up front are just not playing at the same level they played last year. Jurgens, Dickerson, and Steen. I really think Dickerson is just hurt and playing through an injury. And I just don't think Steen is the player that we usually see from the Eagles. Like we usually no holes on their offensive line.
Yeah. Do you have is it just hard to tell with Saquon? Like, does he look like, I don't know, like, he was so unbelievable last year, and I do worry about the workload. And so, to see him just down across the board in efficiency, are you just waiting and seeing with him?
I'm definitely waiting and see. I don't think it's a Saquon thing. Okay. I think right now it's a blocking issue there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move it along then. I think we had one more little buff boy. Yeah, I wanted to hear what you thought of Jaylen Warren and the Steelers. The team is not the role is great for Warren, so we're excited. But the run game is not working very well, which is not what we typically see from Arthur Smith run game.
Yeah. So this one I thought was the most dire situation of all the ones I've seen from a run game standpoint. Now they're running outside zone on the plays we charted. It was 55 plays where they were, a struggle in the run game. Almost half of them were outside zone. That's not a real big surprise. That's what Arthur Smith likes to run. But I feel like the Patriots had the perfect game plan to beat outside zone. There was just Milton Williams was an absolute stud in that game. Some of the key factors of watching some of the tape cut-ups you sent me, Jacob, were there are just some defensive line studs that are taking over game. Milton Williams took over that game. There was I forgot which tape it was, but you sent me a cut up of a team running against the Chiefs, and it was just domination by Chris Jones, who just blew up a lot of these plays on the front side of plays. And when you're running outside zone, if your defensive line, if you're even a little bit slow off the snap, which it feels like a lot of these Steelers offensive linemen were in that game, you're going to get beat to that spot, especially against a penetrating defensive lineman and that scheme that the Patriots are running. So just to me, it felt like these plays were cut off in the backfield by penetration from the defensive line, beating these offensive linemen to the spot and outside zone. There were also a few times where Rodgers made checks, and it felt like the Steelers offensive line was not I guess in tune with what he was trying to do, and they weren't on the same page at all. Maybe that's because I believe that was a road game, so that's obviously it's harder to make those checks. You maybe need to go to a silent count, and it doesn't always check out. Sometimes the quarterback and the run game aren't on the same page. Also, they're just not only a little slow off the snap. I feel like the Steelers offensive line, they're just not getting to the second level at all. Even in outside zone, we're seeing second level defenders climb and make plays in the backfield. So to me, this is the most dire run game of them all. I feel like the talent they have on the offensive line is just simply not there to run Arthur Smith's scheme. And maybe that will improve. There's a lot of players who, I thought the kid they drafted out of Oregon State, Fautano, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Fautano, just had a really bad game in the first game I watched against the Patriots, and then just hasn't looked great. He's a big talent, so maybe he will improve and some of these guys will get better. But I have major concerns about that run game moving forward. And when you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, it just also makes you, I don't want to say one-dimensional as a run game because that doesn't make sense, but it just changes what you can do as a run game. There's no threat of zone read. There's no threat of the quarterback keeping the ball and running or moving out of the pocket really in any way. So it just limits your run game. And a lot of the times when I went over the tape you sent me, the Steelers were running into the heaviest boxes. Like, I don't know why that's the case, but it felt like teams are just playing up on the Steelers, not really concerned with Rodgers' ability to beat them over the top, or I guess these receivers. It's really the receivers' ability to win over the top at these games. And that's a big factor because, like, last week, just watching the Chiefs and the Giants play, that was the first time all season the Giants didn't play too high. And you're like, oh, it's Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, you'd play a lot of too high. But it's kind of the opposite. I feel like these coordinators are scheming against the receivers that they're matching up with more so than anything else. Because when the Giants played Lamb and Pickens, it was just too high, deep the whole game. So I think when it comes to the Steelers run game, you're going to have that all year where defenses are just going to be playing up in the box against them.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, they really haven't tried to push it down the field very much. Like the
Right.
average depth of target's been extremely low, and that's partially brought down by screens. But other than like a few shots to Calvin Austin, there hasn't been much semblance of a deep threat. That makes sense. That's a bit of a bummer. I mean, there's some talent on that line, so I hope that maybe it could get better, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the conclusion I came to. They're ranked pretty low in these offensive line rankings I made, so not great for Warren. He's still like, if he keeps this role, he gets enough involvement as a receiver that it's not a big deal. And he's the type of running back who absolutely can create on his own. Speaking of such things, please make me feel better about Bucky Irving, because I have dug into a lot of advanced stuff on Bucky, and it all kind of paints the picture that he's simply not playing as well as last year. I know that the line is much, much different coordinator as well. I did everything I could statistically to like isolate the play of just the running back, which is really hard to do. And so I'm hoping that you can just say, get out of here with your stats, nerd. We know Bucky's the man.
I didn't
Please.
from watching the tape, I don't feel like we're watching a different version of Bucky Irving.
Good.
I think he's still making these insane cuts. The ability to stop and start is just next level. But the main thing that I'm concerned with, Jacob, is the film against the Jets, because if you look back at the first two games, it was a little bit different. But obviously, the Bucs entered that game last week against the Jets with multiple offensive line starters down. And I know Wirfs is coming back. That will help. So that's the one thing you should be most hopeful with. But there were just way too many attempts that I watched on that cut up against the Jets where they had an advantageous box, or at least they had an even box. And what I mean by that is, like, you have enough players blocking versus the players that on the opposing defense that are in the box. So a 6-on-6 or a 5-on-5. And they're just getting beat at the point of attack, this Bucs offensive line. It was a really, really bad game. And this is not a Jets defensive line that has played all that well this season, and the run game, at least until that point. Quinnen Williams looked like his old self in this game. And Quincy Williams, who got hurt, was just like, anytime the Bucs tried to run anything designed to the outside, it was getting walled off back inside or cut off. Like, these Bucs offensive line were just not climbing the second level. And on the interior, they were getting beat for easy penetration early. So there was a few design inside runs, like inside zone and duo, that just never got off the ground because of that offensive line. So I'm looking forward at the Bucs schedule. Let's take a quick look. I'm just curious how it looks, because I do think that Wirfs will help that offensive line, but it's Eagles, not a good matchup. Seahawks, and I think Mike McDonald's been one of the 4 or 5 best in the league right now coordinating. Then it's Robert Salah, and then it's the Lions. So it's not a good slate coming up from that standpoint. But he has been awesome this year. So I want to make that clear. Like, I'm watching these cutups and I'm seeing him do a lot on his own. There's just a lot. There's just too much to do on his own. That's the biggest problem here.
Yeah. All right. That's basically where I'm at. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to point out a few schematic things. We'll get to a break after that. Because I'm still collecting data, and teams are doing things a little bit different based off of matchup and stuff. But I wanted to talk about Bucky and segue into that, because they are not using quite as much motion as before. Actually, it's kind of a substantial difference so far. And that did boost the run game last year. Bucky averaged a full yard more on runs that involved pre-snap motion than static runs. And then more shotgun running, just a little bit more shotgun running, not quite as much under center. Whereas like Liam Cohen and the Jaguars, we're going to get to them. I got no idea what to make of this, because this wasn't a unit that we expected to be very good, but they are crushing.
It's crazy.
And he's hardly running out of the shotgun at all. I think it was like a 30% shotgun rate for the Jags. So they've leaned a lot more into the under center running, which is good. let me get back here to the schematic stuff. Ginty was a note that I had that I was a little bit worried about. The shotgun running, just a kind of, I don't know, just kind of a vanilla game plan overall. I don't really like the outside zones out of shotgun. That works for some teams. That works really well for like the Falcons and Bijan Robinson.
But that's also Bijan, like the little stone
right.
best runner in the NFL.
The Texans, I wanted to point out the Texans man rate, the percentage of their runs that are man runs is 51%, and the Rams are the next at 39%.
Which we knew would happen because they were going to that Patriots-esque coordinator, which I like. Slowick, I feel like this is a side note. I need to just bring this up real quick with you, Jacob, because I was watching a little Texans tape this week. I think Slowick was made a scapegoat, Bobby Slowick, and it was the worst decision Houston could have made last year. For a broken offensive line, he was made a scapegoat. And because they're just not generating the chunk plays that he was designing for them in the past.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. It's been pretty rough. But yeah, way more man gap running. I think that is like Nick Chubb and then also Woody Marks. Like that's probably the best way to use these guys at this point is just like straight ahead, right? I don't know if they have the line to do it really.
No, they don't.
For what it's worth, Woody was a lot better in college with this type of system. I looked into it this summer because I was like pretty sure this is what they would do. And they traded up to get him, so like it felt like they had some sort of plan for him maybe. And we are seeing him play better. I think he's probably one of the best stashes at running back right now, even though he's not quite as exciting as some of these other running back talents. The scheme fits pretty well. I also wanted to bring up the Jets are using almost no man running. They're almost exclusively zone, which I think is a pretty good fit for what they're doing with Breece Hall there.
Yep.
New coaching staff there. And then I was surprised to see where the Giants were. The Giants were one of the top teams in man gap rushing last year. But 76% of the runs have been charted as zone runs. Do you think that's to fit Scattaboo or something about the offensive line? I remember you said you just didn't feel like they had the guys to do a lot of man running.
They don't have the guards to run man gaps, get a counter and things like that. And more importantly, like it's like the outside players are not great in the passing. And this is something we'll talk about with some of these teams, and we could talk about more. I skipped over a bit with the Vikings, but like some of the best run blocking teams, when you watch these run games, to me at least, they're the teams that have the tight ends and the receivers who, A, when they're asked to make these key insert blocks, make the insert blocks, and B, on the tight ends, it's like when you're running toss crack, you need these guys to make their blocks. So many of these plays that I've seen blown up, like the best example of this was when I watched the Bucs offensive line from last week against the Jets. On some of these plays, the Bucs, there's every single player on the Bucs is doing their job and executing their assignment. But the one player who doesn't on the edge of the run blows up the entire play. And I think that's been happening with the Giants a lot until last week. So one way to counter that is just running, zone runs. I think they've run a lot of inside zone mostly.
Both. I think they'll lean more and more into inside zone with Scattaboo. Yeah. Outside zone was his worst of any, run split in college, which I think makes a lot of sense with his skill set that it would be better navigating the inside zone runs.
I will also say this sometimes, and this is just a problem that we're never going to have the answer to because I don't know it. Sometimes when I'm watching these plays that you sent to me, like I don't know if it's inside zone or if it's duo. And I don't think that the charters, I just think it's hard to tell unless you're in that locker room. So sometimes it could be charted one way and may not be exactly that.
For sure. Yeah, no, I don't presume any of this data is going to be perfectly predictive of anything for sure. All right. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on Jordan Mason before we get to break?
No, I'm really enthused with what I've seen from that Vikings offensive line. That's a plus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All righty. Yeah, they're quite high in these rankings I made.
They should be.
There's like a clear top 12 or so that it's like these lines are actually playing well. And then there's a lot of lines that are not playing so well. And then there's some lines that are playing awful.
Yes.
But like any of the top 12 feel kind of interchangeable. Like if you want to put
one question
Vikings at one, you could go for it. Yeah.
I do have one question about it. We need to get to a break. Maybe we'll get to the break and then I'll ask you the question coming out of the break. Let's take a quick break.
What's he like? The happy-faced killer?
You mean my dad? Be glad you never have to know.
You think that you're so much better than me.
You're just like your old man.
I'm not like you at all.
See, we're back to playing happy face killer.
Welcome back, Aaron.
At this point, I think he's trolling me, Aaron, because I still told him on the before the show that I do believe Brock Purdy is better than Mac Jones. He said it's clear after watching last couple weeks that Mac Jones is better than Brock Purdy. But the question I had for you, Jacob, is when you're assembling your rankings for the offensive line, Is it? I assume it's mostly a run game rankings, right? Because I
That's
think
all we're talking about
yeah,
today.
exactly. Because that's what matters for fantasy. And it's going to be really interesting when we do talk about Jacksonville, because I don't think they have great blocking from a talent standpoint, but their run game is super dominant. And that shows how much the scheme matters and what Liam Cohen's able to add to that. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
Let's get to it right now. Yeah, all we're talking about today is run games. I'm leaning heavily on 3 stats,
Okay.
plus what we've seen, what we know about these run games, what we expected coming into the year. Some of them, it's going to be adjusted a little bit, like hoping that Tristan Wirfs comes back and elevates things. So if you notice anything that seems off, maybe I'm missing something like anecdotally with a player, like feel free to shout that out. Because putting together a freaking 32 team like list of who's the best run game right now is not easy.
Fair.
And like knowing how much of it belongs to the line and the coaching staff and like I trying to isolate that from a team that has Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on it, for
Right.
example. Like that's not easy.
So
But
true.
that's what we're looking at. That's what we're attempting to do here is like which run games with like the line and the coach are elevating what we might get from the running backs and which ones are hurting the running back. And then next week, we're going to come back and like maybe update a few of these for you. And then also talk about pass blocking.
Which
So
I'm really actually mostly excited to do, because I can't wait to watch some of these pass blocking reps, because there are so many teams that struggle with simple counter and simple stunt games up front.
number 32. Do you have a guess?
Last offensive line, my guess would be the Raiders.
They are 31. Number 32, Cincinnati Bengals, for all the reasons that we've talked about. I think you just have to put these 2 teams at 32 and 31. They have negative yards before contact for their starting running backs. The Bengals have 0.27 adjusted yards before contact per attempt. That's per the Fantasy Points data suite. The next lowest is the Giants and Steelers at 0.78. No other team is below 1. So
and that was what, name that stat again?
Adjusted yards before contact per attempt. It attempts to alleviate for like a lot of stuff that sometimes goes into these running back stats, like kneel downs and stuff like that.
Okay, cool.
You can find it on the Fantasy Points data suite. They're also 27th in ESPN's run block win rate. And then like we've seen, the run game is just not working. We think, Dan's lamented for years about what this run game was doing to Joe Mixon. And then we saw as soon as Joe Mixon got away from it, he was crushing from an efficiency standpoint, which we had never seen that him be an efficient running back, really. He was always just a volume sponge. But as soon as he got to Houston and not like it was some great offense, the offensive coordinator immediately got canned. He was doing much, much better than he was in Cincinnati. It's just a lot of shotgun runs, a lot of simple up the middle runs. And that's why Chase Brown, like so much of his value was predicated on the targets. So I'm putting them at 32. I don't really have a lot of hope that it's going to get better. But the schedule has been brutal. So that's definitely part of it, as I already talked about. The Raiders are next. They're 31st in run block win rate. This is per ESPN. We had not Seth Kaiser. I'm blanking on his name. Seth Walder on last year to talk about this. It was a pretty interesting discussion. If you search it now, like some of the specific examples won't be relevant, but the process behind this stat is still interesting. They're second to last. And then obviously Genty, negative yards before contact. 65% of running back runs have gained 0 yards before contact. The next lowest rate is 58%.
Wow.
The lowest in the NFL last year was 57%. So 65% is really bad. They need to improve on that. 42% have been hit behind the line of scrimmage. The next highest is the Steelers at 34%. So this might just be stone cold worst. The Raiders, if you're wondering what's going on with your Ashton Genty teams, this is it. And if he doesn't start getting targets, just feels like we're screwed. I don't know.
It does. And what do we have to look forward to on an offensive line? That it's Colton Miller, who was a better player early in his career, still probably a fine player. Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith is their center. Jackson Powers Johnson, I think he's playing out of position at right guard, but I guess he could play there as well. And then DJ Glazer, right tackle. This is just not a unit that I think has a good chance to improve from a run blocking standpoint this year. But the hope, I think, Jacob, is, and I'm so confused by this, if I'm going to say the most confusing start to the season for any team through 3 weeks, to me, it's the Raiders. And simply because every other stop of his career, Chip Kelly has designed really good offenses. And last year, the run game he designed at Ohio State for those two backs, Judkins and Henderson, was phenomenal. So my hope is that he can do it, because we do have at least one example, in my opinion, Jacksonville, of a coordinator and a scheme making a bad offensive line, or at least an offensive line that maybe I'm undervaluing, look a lot better.
Let's hope. I really am hoping, because I do have a lot of Ginty, especially in Dynasty. I was like, hopefully these teams could compete, and they're not competitive. You're not going to like this. Number 30, the New York Fighting Football Giants.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair.
25th in run block win rate, 31st in adjusted yards before contact per attempt. So you're going to need heroics from Scadaboo. You're going to need yards after contact from Scadaboo if you are buying in on him as, somebody who's going to come in and be a significant fantasy contributor. And I definitely think that he could do that. But yeah, I don't think the line's going to do him any favors.
Two important notes on that, though. One, the line will return most likely for every snap this week Andrew Thomas, their best player by far. He's expected to play full this week. That's going to be a big boost for their line. Two, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. That interior offensive line is, in my opinion, one of the worst in the NFL, with Runyon, JMS, John Michael Schmitz, and Greg Van Roten at right guard. That is not going to get much better. But three, Jackson Dart will help the run game. Jackson Dart will help their run game in the red zone. If you think of some of the best runs the Giants have had this year, and Scadaboo himself, two of those are when they brought in Dart for just those random snaps, and they were able to design some interesting things. They had a full house backfield, because when you have Dart, and you can use, like, one play, they had Dart in a full house backfield. They had Scadaboo as the lead back. They handed it to Scadaboo, and then Dart has action where he bootlegs or takes a turn and rolls out to his left, and they have two pullers coming out to the left with Dart following him. But then it's just Scadaboo kind of patiently waiting and then attacking the A-gap as the defenders flow with the run. So we're going to see way more creative things, because defenders were not respecting Russell Wilson's ability to keep the ball and run. And I think that's something we need to note in a lot of these breakdowns when we go through some of these most successful and least successful run teams. Do they have a quarterback who teams can A, run zone read with, and B, defenses will respect to keep the ball in the run game?
For sure. Yeah, that's a good call. I think the Thomas note and the Dart note in particular could help things here. So hopefully, I mean, if they push up to just 22nd, 20th, like that, I think we'll be totally fine for Scadaboo, because he's getting the targets. And
one final note, though, on that, just because I'm so close to the situation, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think the targets will come down. Russ was a big check down artist, and that's something we saw throughout training camp in the first 3 games. That I don't think Dart is going to. Dart's an aggressive quarterback.
That's fair. I think they'll design stuff to him. I think he's one of their best weapons. He was a really good receiver in college. He's just great with the ball in his hands, obviously. Okay, so Giants at 30th, 29th. This one has caught me off guard.
Okay.
I really hope things improve. It is the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
No thoughts on that? Does that not surprise you that they're so low? Like,
well, go ahead.
Run game worked pretty well last year. Like, they did play Cleveland last week, but the other 2 games were Detroit and Washington, which, I mean, Washington's supposed to be pretty easy to run on. They had 84 carries, took 23 attempts to get 84 yards on the ground for Josh Jacobs. It just has not been good. They're 29th in win rate. They're 24th in adjusted yards before contact. 56% of running back runs gained no yards before contact. That's 27th.
Yeah, I'll say a couple notes on this. One, I've kind of always felt like the way they built this offensive line with players like Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker at tackle, it's better suited for pass blocking than run blocking. But like you said, they had much more success running the ball and blocking the run last year. So I think a lot of it is opponent dependent right now. We talked about the Browns earlier as one of these just impossible teams to run on this year, arguably the best run defense in the NFL. But I think now that I've watched them on tape versus the Giants and a little bit extra, because I saw a couple cut-ups this week, I want to give credit where it's due to the Commanders' run defense. I think it's taken a massive leap forward. I think in a few weeks from now, when we check in, we'll talk about them in a totally different light from a run defense standpoint. And really what they do is what a lot of what I saw the Patriots do against the Steelers. It's just this aggressive mindset with their defensive linemen. It's shoot these gaps, get upfield, and we'll worry about the rest later. And it feels like they're just, against the Giants, it felt like they just were so in tune with what the Giants wanted to do in the run game, because they were just getting a jump on the snap. And then I saw that in the cut up this week of the team they played last week, the Raiders. They were just so in tune with everything the Raiders were doing in the run game. And I'll leave that note saying this. That's a coaching point. Like, I think the Commanders are getting really well coached up from a run defense standpoint. So 2 of their matchups are against the Commanders and the Browns. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt right now to them.
Good. I hope it's better. That's an
Yeah.
interesting note on the Commanders for sure. Teams ran against the Commanders at the highest rate of any team last year in
Right.
neutral situations. So teams offenses definitely thought it was a situation to attack.
And it was last year
But
for
that's
sure.
important to know if that's different. I will say, like on the Packers, it's easy to just be like, well, bad matchup, no big deal. But like, I don't think the Ravens have a very good offensive line right now. And we already talked about the Bengals, the team that had was getting hit behind the line of scrimmage the most. That was the Packers against this Browns defense. So it's like, I don't know. I hope it gets better, but it's
True.
been pretty bad so far. I'm gonna go Steelers next. Steelers and then
Good.
Saints at 28 and 27. Steelers are 19th in win rate, but 30th in adjusted yards before contact, 29th in terms of the running backs getting hit at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. The Saints are 31st in win rate. They're 9th in adjusted yards before contact. So that's interesting, something to keep an eye on. They're actually pretty high in the percentage of runs where they got past the line of scrimmage before contact, but that's something Kamara's always been really good at.
True.
So that could just be a stat that's more of a Kamara stat than a team stat. I've got them at 27, but they could be better. They were a little bit better than this last year. 26, I've got the 49ers. They really haven't played very well, and CMC has not been very efficient on the ground so far. The 49ers are such a weird team because they're 3-0, but like they're super banged up, and I don't know that they're actually playing that well. They've just done enough to get by.
They played well, I think.
For sure, yeah. It's just a weird team, weird offense for sure. 29th in win rate, 25th in adjusted yards before contact, and only 51% of the runs.
So odd to see a Shanahan offense not being able to generate in the run game.
Yeah, I think it will get better. If I had
to.
to guess, I would be curious to hear Aaron's
Keep an
thoughts
eye
on
on
this.
Ayuk's return, by the way. Ayuk's one of the best run blocking receivers. And
That's probably part of it too, is like
Yeah.
the pass game isn't threatening teams in the way that it normally does, right?
I just think more so just like the way that they run that outside zone scheme, it's so reliant, and Shanahan's talked about this in the past, so reliant on the receivers and those insert blocks and getting down. And I'm not so sure Pearsall's the best blocker from what I've seen. I know Jennings is, and I know Ayuk is, but Jennings has been a little hurt. So when they can kind of get back to more Jennings and Ayuk on the field, and also, by the way, let's not discount this. George Kittle's arguably the best blocking two-way tight end in the NFL and one of the best blocking tight ends. So just losing him is a big knock to the run game as well.
Good notes. You got to think about the wide receiver blocking as it pertains to your offensive line ranks. That's a funny note, but it's definitely true.
It's true, though.
I know. Yeah, no, I'm not making funny. That's a real football guy note. I think it will be better. I think that makes sense. They did play the Seahawks in week 1, which is a really tough matchup. But since then, it's the Saints, which is a respectable defense, and then the Cardinals. And they didn't run the ball very well against either of those teams. They could probably move up. I'm totally fine putting them ahead of the Chiefs, who I have next. The Chiefs' run game has sucked. They're 19th in win rate. This is another team that's like doing too much shotgun running.
Yep.
It's just pretty bland. 19th in win rate, 30th in adjusted yards before contact, and 29th in the percentage of the runs where the running back was hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. So honestly, yeah, put the 49ers ahead of them. Chiefs have been rough.
Yeah.
Titans,
I thought Chiefs would be even lower down the list.
Yeah, totally fair. Titans are next, 24th. I think there's talent on this line. It could be better than it has been.
I don't know what's going on there, but they have Callahan as offensive line coach. It's very
tough
odd.
matchups too.
Yeah.
I think that they could be better. I've got them at 24th because they're 30th in adjusted yards before contact, 29th in terms of the percentage of the runs where they got no contact or no yards before contact. They're 19th in win rate. So maybe some reason for optimism. Anytime that the win rate is higher than the other two stats, I think that's noteworthy, and maybe it could get better. The Chargers are next. They're
good. I was waiting to hear that. I'm surprised they weren't in the high 20s.
Speaking of, it's win rate. I've got some win rate hopium here. They're 13th in win rate. And so I think that maybe gives some optimism. We saw this unit struggle without Slater last year. But like they got it going a little bit last week against the Broncos. And they are charted as 13th in win rate, which I think is interesting. But yeah, overall 27th in adjusted yards before contact. We've seen Hampton kind of struggle. 58% of running back runs have gained no yards before contact. That's second to last. And that might be a Hampton stat. Najee's percentage was 53%. So that means Hampton's like above 60%. He weirdly had a really low yards before contact rate at North Carolina. And I thought a lot of that had to do with the offense, but he also is willing to be like very patient. I'm curious where he's at in that next gen stat I gave. In terms of time spent behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah. Sometimes he is just like waiting for the little sliver to like shoot through. He's just an interesting running back. I don't know that we have a whole lot like him at running back right now.
Agreed. I really want to watch more Hampton before I give too much thoughts on him. I haven't been able to do it just yet.
Totally fair. Alrighty, so we've got Titans 24, Chargers 23, Dolphins 22. I'm hoping the Titans and Chargers maybe pass them. The Dolphins are 18th in win rate, 23rd in adjusted yards before contact, and 24th in terms of percentage of the runs where the running back gained no yards before contact. So clearly a bottom third of the league team probably.
They just don't have the talent up front.
That's kind of how it feels. Yeah, I think the run game is pretty good, can be pretty good with the coaching there, obviously. But they've really struggled. Maybe Ollie Gordon helps make this not so one-dimensional. Like, Achane's really struggled to get anything going up the middle, which I don't want to blame on him necessarily, but like he's averaging like fewer than 2 yards per rush up the middle. So maybe Ollie Gordon helps things. But yeah, 22 is where I've got them. That's probably with like a top 8 run game designer, but like
easy. Yeah.
Like bottom 3 or 4 talent in terms of the offensive line pushing.
Agreed.
All right. Following the Dolphins, we've got the Cleveland Browns. Don't really know what to do with this unit. I think Judkins getting in here might help things a little bit. I know they wanted to go more bully ball this year. I don't know if they really have the talent to do it in the way that they have at times with Stefanski. They're 15th in win rate, which is pretty good. They might push up from this 21 ranking. They're 26th in adjusted yards before contact. 50% of the runs have gained no yards before contact. That's 21st.
Wow.
I do think these yards before contact stats are sometimes influenced by the running back, though,
Yes.
And also like the quarterback, literally like the statue of all statues at the quarterback position. Like, I think this offensive line and Stefanski, we have to give a lot of credit to, might actually be better than this, and we might see some efficient running from Judkins if they're able to be in neutral situations. I don't know.
I just think it's tough because the defenses are playing them so one-dimensionally.
For sure. 21 for the Browns, 20 for the Seahawks. Have you watched any Seahawks this year?
Fortunately, not. I've watched their defense a little bit because I really like McDonald, but I haven't watched their run game yet.
Yeah. They're 19th in win rate. They are 30th in adjusted yards before contact. I mentioned that both of these running backs are slow to get to the line in terms of the average time spent behind the line per next gen stats. Both guys are great at creating yards after contact, so it's possible that they're influencing this low number here. They're 29.
What's their zone rate, by the way?
Running a lot of zone, like normal. Let me get the exact number for you.
Because I do feel like that stat is a little bit influenced by like what teams are running zone and which teams are running or outside zone and kind of some of the counter and crack toss versus the teams that are running like inside zone and duo.
Interesting. Yeah. 37% outside zone. That's the 10th highest rate in the NFL. Overall, 64% of the runs have been zone. That's also 10th.
Okay.
33%. And I think this maybe speaks to your point a little bit. And then also to kind of the way that these two running backs run. 33% of their runs have been hit behind the line of scrimmage. That's the third worst rate in the league. So I don't really know what to do with them because the win rate is decent. And I know that Kubiak's capable of designing a really effective run game, but it's been pretty up and down so far. So 20th is where I'm putting them.
Fair.
The Texans are next. The Texans are 21st in win rate, 9th in adjusted yards before contact, and 4th in the percentage of runs where the running back gained no yards before contact, which I really think might be a Nick Chubb stat.
Yeah.
Because he's kind of Javonte Williams out there where he just gets it and is like going forward.
Yes.
So another team that I don't really know what to do because they're going to rank probably dead last when we do the pass protection rankings.
Yeah.
And so this is where they landed because they are 21st in run block win rate.
Okay.
So maybe it's a unit that's come together and is like getting a little bit of cohesiveness on the ground, but not so much outside of that. But I mean, the run, even with that said, it's not like the run game is working particularly well.
Yeah, I think a few successful runs, but not much. Yeah.
Yeah. The Jets I've got next. The Jets are 19th in win rate, but 30th in adjusted yards before contact and 29th in terms of the percentage of runs where the running back is getting no contact before the line of scrimmage, getting no yards before the line of scrimmage. Getting no yards before initial contact is what I'm trying to say.
It's a lot.
32% of the runs were hit behind the line of scrimmage, which is tied with the Chargers and the Packers for 5th worst. But again, this is a team that uses a ton of zone, right?
Right.
Like it's just like the Seahawks, kind of.
I also think that this number is influenced a lot by the Justin Fields injury. If Justin Fields gets back on the field, I think that's going to help their run game a lot.
For sure. The Texans are dead last in success rate on running back runs, by the way. So
wow.
Their win rate is high, but honestly, they probably should bump behind a few of these teams. I definitely think like the Titans should pass them. The Browns will probably pass them. I hope the Seahawks will pass them. Cardinals are next. We're at the middle of the pack here. They're 9th in win rate, so maybe there's some reason for optimism. They're second to last overall in running back rush rate, success rate on running back runs. They're second to last. Only the Texans are worse. And that's weird. This run game has worked well in the past. So we'll see. Like we already talked about them at the top of Trey Benson. I think it could get better, but it hasn't been very good so far. But ESPN win rate likes what they've seen.
It's interesting because in the past, we've kind of talked this run game and run scheme up with Pat Singh. And I think in the past, it has been a big factor in why Connor was so effective on a per snap basis. But I'm not so sure it's at that level this season. And that's just something to keep in mind with Benson. I still really like Benson moving forward, but I don't know if he has the same track that Connor had in past seasons when he was getting all those touches.
Yeah, they get a tough matchup on Thursday against Seattle. I don't know if I actually defined it, but the win rate is like tracked by GPS, and it's like how they're getting pushed and where defensive linemen are getting off and on their spots and like beating offensive linemen, and it tracks every single lineman and like how the unit is doing together, and gives them wins or losses based off of that. Whereas like fantasy points data's charting is all people watching film, but
right.
So different sources here. The win rate has liked what it's seen from.
I like mixing in all the sources like you have. It gives us kind of that. It covers all bases, I think.
Yeah. We've got the Ravens next. Don't really know what to do with them. They're 18th in win rate. It feels like they've played really bad lately, but they also have had some not easy matchups. They get the Chiefs this week, so we'll see how that goes.
I feel like when I watch the Ravens, they don't particularly block up things well, but it doesn't matter because Lamar and Henry are in that backfield, and it's so hard to scheme against that.
I thought there was a lot of room to run against Buffalo, but maybe that's just a note about Buffalo.
Yes, I think it's a Buffalo issue because Miami had success running against Buffalo too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So they're 18th in win rate. They're second in adjusted yards before contact, but I do think that's really influenced by the personnel there with Henry
Lamar.
And Lamar. They're 57% of the runs gained no yards before contact, so that's 20th. So I've got the middle of the pack here. I don't think they're
that's fair
going to boost anything, and they might even hurt Henry based on what we've seen lately. But again, some of these are pretty tough matchups. The Bucs are next, so barely above average, and that's with all the changes. Hopefully it gets better, right? Like their mauling center has had to freaking play left tackle. They have got a new coach. Like hopefully this gets a lot better. I think this has got to be a top 10 unit, and it could be even higher than that. But so far they're 22nd. I mean, it was last year, right? Are we just giving this credit to Liam Cohen? I guess that's fair because you're going to see where the Jags are ranked. 22nd in win rate, 19th in adjusted yards before contact, 28th in terms of percentage of runs where the running back was like hit at or behind the line of scrimmage. So they should be lower than this. This is projecting forward.
They should be, and I you're right. Like moving,
you watched more of it than me, so definitely push back if you have it.
It was really ugly against the Jets, but it's just hard to say because you made a great point. Like moving Graham Barton back to center off of left tackle is already a massive upgrade for them. And Graham Barton was such a key component in the run game. So was Tristan Wirfs last year. So like, I don't think it was all just Liam Cohen doing his job really well. I think it was in big part the talent they have on that offensive line. But the problem is like, they do have two massive injuries on their offensive line. And I think both were placed on IR, their right tackle and their right guard. So like, I'm just not sure if the guys they have in now, like they're going to probably have to move Ben Bredesen, I think, to guard, I would imagine, once Barton moves back into center. Then they have like Charlie Heck, I think, playing right tackle. I'm pretty sure it's Charlie Heck, who's not a player you want there. They have a 6th-round pick from 2024. I don't know much about him. Elijah Kine at left guard. Maybe that's where Bredesen goes actually after Barton comes back in. It's just, it looks to me now, Jacob, like a line with 2 amazing players and 3 potentially nightmare players, or at least 1 or 2 of them. And everything I've always been taught about offensive line play is it's not about coaches and teams are more concerned with their weak link than their strong links. Like it's more important that the one guy doesn't mess up and not do his job. And that's kind of what I saw when I watched the Bucs versus the Jets. Like there were a few of these runs for Bucky that should have worked and were designed well, and they were executed well, except for one player who missed his assignment. It's just like when I watch the Giants, it's so frustrating. But that one player who missed his assignment blows up the whole run.
I'm curious if you have any teams that you would move ahead of them that we've talked
Okay.
about, like the Jets or the Cardinals or the Ravens. Like I think we're approaching like a tier of good
Sure.
lines. I think it's basically the top 11 or 12 are pretty good. Is there anybody that we've talked about that you think you would push ahead of them right now? Because I think the point is valid that we can't just expect it to be what it
Yeah.
was last year with the injuries.
Right. I think I put the Ravens run game ahead of them. Just
Okay.
having Lamar and Henry for sure. Just changes.
Well, it's,
what you
we're
do.
trying to isolate from the talent,
No, but I don't mean that. I mean just like having
just
them
what it
on
can
the
do for.
field changes
yeah.
how defenses can scheme to stop you. So it allows you to be more successful in the run game. So that would be the one. I want to put the Cardinals there, but I need to take the due diligence and watch that Cardinals line because I just don't think they've been as successful as they were in the past with Petsing.
Yeah. It was not good when I watched them, but I separated it by like runs where they got no yards before contact and the runs where they did get yards after contact. And on the runs where they did get yards after contact, it was like that worked great. Like that was exactly what the plan was, and there was a
Right.
lot of room to run. And so yeah, if they find cohesion, they definitely shoot above the Bucs. They're probably like
Sure.
top 8 in that case, but they just need to have a much higher. Like I said, they're
I
second to
think
last
that's
in
fair.
they're second to last in success rate, which I think paints the exact picture that I'm giving you here.
You know what? I wouldn't put them because I would agree, and I don't love just looking through their depth chart. I don't love the talent they have on that offensive line either. Even some of the players I think are their best linemen are better pass blockers than run blockers.
I'm a little nervous about the Trey Benson stuff because people seem
Yeah.
like they're really excited for him, and I'm a little nervous that it's going to
Yeah.
be like shut down city against
Possible.
the Seahawks, and
Well,
everybody's going to
Seahawks,
freak
yeah,
out.
right.
That's the first game is like short rest
know.
against the Seahawks, and he's going to average 1 yard per carry, and everybody's going to like say that he sucks or whatever.
And then you can trade for him.
I guess that's true. In front of the Bucs, I've got the Panthers. This one
Wow.
surprised me. Yeah,
Big surprise. Nice.
This one definitely surprised me. And maybe they shouldn't be this high. Let me double check their schedule. I think I already did this, and it was kind of easy. The Jags, and then the Cardinals and the Falcons.
Okay.
I think this Jags defense is decent, but they
I
did
do
kind of
too.
Chuba did kind of struggle to run against them. They're 7th in win rate and 14th in adjusted yards before contact and 16th in terms of the percentage of the runs that got to the line of scrimmage before contact. Honestly, it's just, outside of the top 12, like I don't really know what to do with a lot of these teams. I think that this could work. And it worked pretty well last year. Like as long as the games are close, they were able to run on people. So that's kind of why I landed on them here. But it wouldn't surprise me if some of these other teams pass them because I think they probably have more talent on the line. The Panthers have some good players on the line. Like they've invested in it.
Yeah.
I'm talking in circles here. I don't really know. Let's get to the top 12.
No, you're good. The Panthers offensive line is an interesting one. I want to watch it before I can really comment on it.
Dude, actually, it's more like in a top 11 because I don't know if I believe in this team at all. But the freaking Patriots is who I have at 12.
Interesting.
They're 5th in win rate. They're 15th in adjusted yards before contact. They're 18th in terms of percentage of runs that have made it to the line before contact. We've seen it work really well with Ramondre Stevenson when he holds onto the ball.
Yeah.
It probably has a little bit to do with their schedule. They get the Panthers this week. The Panthers have played a little bit better than I expected. This normally is a team that you can just run all over. They get the Panthers and then the Bills and then the Saints. So like, I think they should be able to just run the ball these next 3 weeks. If they don't, then we'll definitely need to pull back on where I have them. So far, they've faced the Raiders, the Dolphins, and the Steelers, which all have been a little bit leaky at times.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure what to do with them. The stats look good, but it could be partially because of the schedule. This is a matchup or a line they were pretty worried about going into the year.
We were worried about it. But from what I've actually read about this team, and I didn't get I obviously watched Patriots defense versus Steelers run game, but I didn't see the opposite. I've read that both Will Campbell and Jared Wilson, the two rookies, have played really well. So maybe that's a factor in this.
For sure. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, we have arrived at the top 11. I think this is a tier break. The Philadelphia Eagles is who I have here. We expect more, but like Dan talked about, like they are banged up right now. They're only 22nd in win rate. And honestly, like they might drop from here, but just given what we know that this unit can do and like Jalen Hurts and everything, this is where they landed. They're 13th in adjusted yards for contact. They're also 13th in the percentage of runs that got to the line before initial contact got there. Any pushback on this? Does this seem too high?
It's not too high. I mean, this is a unit we used to put in the top 1, top 2, top 3. I don't think they're there anymore. I think this is probably right around where they should be. I don't think any of the teams you've mentioned I could put ahead of them. So I think that's fair from that standpoint. Not Patriots, but I will say this, like the way that teams play the Eagles, just from watching the Chiefs tape, and it's not just the Chiefs, like this is how a lot of teams play the Eagles, because you just sent me the cut up of all Barkley's negative runs. They just really are focused on stopping this run game, whether that be focused on the zone read and having that defender at the point, the pivot point, like is Hurts going to keep it or hand it to Barkley, or just having enough players in the box to give them advantage in the run game. I really think that's how teams are designing to stop the Eagles at this point. And we saw it last week, like the Rams were susceptible once the Eagles started attacking downfield vertically in the pass game. And I don't think teams are going to change that anytime soon. I think they're willing to give these one-on-one matchups to Smith and A.J. Brown because they know if they don't, based on the tape from last year, they will get destroyed in the run game and they won't have no chance to win the game. The Rams were certainly an example of that. Like the whole game plan was to stop Barkley and to stop the run game. So I just think that's interesting. If teams are going to look at last year's tape and make and change so much of how they're scheming to stop these teams based on that, rotating that safety down in the box every snap or just putting more guys in the box, give them an advantage, it is going to hurt the Eagles' run game throughout the season.
Yeah, and I got thrown off of my numbers a little bit here. They're 12th, not 11th. Okay. 11th is the Lions, and I think both these teams are notable.
Lions on the way up too, by the way, I think.
Both these teams are notable because, they kicked ass in that last game, dude.
We knew with those 3 new starters on the interior, it was going to take a little time.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they could push higher. I was going to say both these teams are notable because they were like 1-2 last year.
Right.
And so if they've dropped to 10, that does affect the run game efficiency a little bit. But if the Lions continue to surge, they could easily push in the top 3, top 5. Let me know if any of these next few teams you think they should just clearly move ahead of.
Okay.
They're 25th in win rate. But I do think like what we saw in week 3, it's going to get better. They're 6th in adjusted yards before contact, which maybe has a little bit to do with their schedule. Only 49% of their runs did they get to the line of scrimmage before initial contact. That's 20th.
Okay.
So they haven't really performed up to this ranking, but I think this is where they belong, and they could be a lot better. We know that this coaching staff can get them there. Atlanta Falcons above them.
Wow, that's 10.
Yes, they're 20th in win rate. They're 8th in adjusted yards before contact. They're 12th in the running back getting to the line of scrimmage stat. Maybe they don't belong here. They're a team that is had to make some changes too along the offensive line, but it's gone pretty well.
Well, yeah.
Obviously, they scored 0 points in their last game, so it didn't go that well. But I think that was mostly on the passing game.
Mostly on Penix.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Honestly,
mostly on one person. We all know who it is. Yeah. Bijan was running back 1 in success rate last year. Like this run game really dominated last year. And I think that they're capable of doing something similar. 10 is where I've got them, even though they're 20th.
Do you have the numbers on what their outside zone percentage is by any chance?
I think they're number 1 in the league.
They got to be 1, right?
Yeah, that they were last year.
So one thing I will say about that is, remember early on last season when Cousins was still at quarterback, it took them a while to get that scheme going with the outside zone scheme. But as they, worked through the season, like you mentioned, they became the number 1 team in that regard in rushing success rate. Because I think even with the injuries, I was a little maybe overrating to some degree Jacob in the preseason when they lost McGarry, their right tackle, and their backup right tackle. It should impact them more in the pass game than the run game, and which I think it has. But also I think Penix has done a really bad job personally. So with that said, I feel like they have a good scheme in place, and I think this is a good ranking. I'm okay with this. I think they could be really successful all season because they're running so much outside zone and they're running it well.
Yeah, people are asking for the rankings. I'm going to put them on Twitter. I can send them out in the newsletter as well, and then we'll have timestamps, so they'll be here too on the YouTube video once we're done with this.
Just one note: if you're running outside zone, you have an athlete like Drake London as a receiver that just helps so much for that specific scheme.
Yeah. Okay, Atlanta Falcons at 10, Los Angeles Rams at 9. I think this is basically where they fall. Like we know this run game can work well. I don't know if they have the guys to get the same push that they did a couple of years ago when the duo stuff was working so well. I mean, we saw that against the freaking Eagles where they thought they would just line up and run it straight at him on that going down and didn't get it. Their duo runs haven't worked as well last year or this year, and maybe that's just Kyron. I don't know. but it's down. But overall, 12th in win rate, 11th in adjusted yards before contact, and they're third in terms of the percentage of runs that have been basically like stuffed. Only 39% of the runs gained no yards before contact, which is probably a little bit of Kyron's stat and also a scheme stat. Like so many of these duo runs are going right at the middle, as opposed to the outside zone where you're more likely to get shot down before the line of scrimmage. I think, and I think you would agree with me, that they've looked better when they've run the zone stuff to Blake Corum. That's a small sample size, and it's a backup running back. You never want to, say backup running back's better than the starter when it's a small sample size. The run game got working better last week, but it hasn't been the dominant unit that we've seen at times.
I saw it hasn't been, but I think they've definitely been successful. I think this is a fair ranking, and I will say this because we watched all of last week's cut up, and then I watched this week's cut up. Blake Corum's really good. I really like watching Blake Corum. He's so patient behind the line of scrimmage, but he also knows exactly how to pace his runs and make and go from 0 to 60. I do think he'll continue to be a bigger part of this run game moving forward.
All right, so we've got the Rams at 9.
I think it's fair.
Denver Broncos at 8. You want to push back on this? And I'm curious.
No. Okay. The Broncos were a team I thought would come in top 5, but it just haven't been as good as we expected so far this season.
Well, I think this is right. Per the fantasy points data suite, yes, they're first in adjusted yards before contact.
Okay.
But that's including all runs. I don't think it's just running back runs.
It couldn't just be just Harvey's runs.
Yeah. So this is this is adjusted to remove scrambles, trick plays, and quarterback kneels and sneaks. First, per the fantasy points data suite, adjusted yards before contact, 14th overall in terms of the percentage of runs where the running back gained no yards before contact. 11th in win rate. It's worked pretty well with Dobbins, right? Like, where are they in success rate overall?
Yeah.
19th in success rate on running back runs. That's lower than I expected, actually. I think 8th is about right. I think the teams that are above them have played very, very well, but maybe the Broncos have the talent to pass some of them.
I think it's fair.
The Bears.
Wow.
Chicago Bears. I have got at 7. The Bears
unbelievable.
Are 3rd in win rate. They're 12th in adjusted yards before contact. Only 36% of the running back runs have gained no yards before contact. That's first.
Wow. And that's despite DeAndre Swift spending an hour behind the line of scrimmage.
And yet they come in 25th in running back rush success rate.
Wow. What a damning stat for DeAndre Swift.
Yeah.
I guess the fantasy, I believe in all of this. And first of all, I don't think we know that Ben Johnson is really successful at scheming up a run game. That's obvious. But we also know, or we at least in the past thought, well, he had a lot of good talent on the offensive line with the Lions. But the Bears did a really good job this offseason, I think, of accruing offensive line talent on the interior offensive line. And to me, a lot of the run plays start and end with your interior offensive line. So I think that's a factor as well. The takeaway for me for fantasy, I believe they'll stay up here, Jacob. And I think this is potentially a team that could rise even higher on this, honestly, as the offensive line gels together and there's more continuity there. It's a lot of new names playing together. The question is, what does it mean for fantasy? Because I think it'll be like this all year, but can we see the other part of it flip, right? Can we go from a team that's 25th in the success rate to higher? Is Monangai that guy? Is Roshan Johnson that guy? Or are they potentially in the market for trading for a player at the deadline? That's all things that I'm considering.
Well, they've got a week 5 bye, so things could change very quickly. Like, it's one more game. They get the Raiders this week, and then we could see them like evaluate where they're at and be like, this offense is working. Caleb's playing better. This isn't an like emergency situation we've got here out the gate. We don't really ever know how it's gonna gel, but like it's gelling pretty well. Yep. We just really need to get something on the ground to like not have Caleb get into too many disadvantageous situations, right?
True.
So if they can get something there, maybe that's their guys, or maybe that's going to get a guy. I don't know. But
if it's their guys, I'm leaning toward maybe Monangai being the better bet for that, just based on the Coach Speak. I think you sent me something last week from Coach Speak Index. Shout out them on Monangai and Ben Johnson talking him up. We haven't seen it just yet, but maybe that's just patience that we need to, show here. He's a stash in every league.
Oh, yeah.
Make sure he's not on your waiver wires, and he is on some waiver wires, Monangai. Put him on your bench.
Yeah, I mentioned Woody Marks as like maybe a better stash because I think he could take it over at any time, really. I think Nick Chubb is probably last in the league in terms of holding on to his job for the year. But man, Monagai is close, and there's a lot more upside,
Agreed.
right? Like this
Agreed.
Bears compared this ranking to where the Texans were.
Right.
There's definitely a lot more upside. So if you want to make Monagai like the number one stash, go get him. That makes sense to me. Okay, Chicago Bears coming in at 7. Definitely a surprise from what we would have expected going into the year, but they expected it to be a lot better. You know, we just didn't know how it would come together, and so far it's worked really well.
Yep.
Commanders at 6. They're 12th in win rate. They're 2nd in adjusted yards before contact. 2nd in the percentage of the runs they gained. They got to the line of scrimmage before initial contact. 2nd in that stat. Bill Krosky-Merritt getting yards before contact, getting yards after contact. He's a beast. I think this run game has a lot of upside.
Yes.
If Jane Daniels is out there and healthy. We've seen it, right? We've seen the explosive plays, but also the success rate. The Commanders are 6th in running back rush success rate. The Rams, number 1, by the way, 61%. That's way higher than anyone in the league. So maybe they deserve to be higher. 61% is crazy.
No, I'm okay with where you rank them. And at Commanders, I would think we'll hear who's in front of them, but they maybe deserve to be higher for me, just because when I watch these teams, they have the most diverse and the most fun run scheme to watch. I really love what Cliff Kingsbury does. And this was the case in Arizona too. I remember with Chase Edmonds when he came out of nowhere. And it's just something I think will continue to develop over this course of the season. They don't even have like crazy talent on the offensive line. They have like Bobby Johnson, the former Giants offensive line coach, who Giants fans thought was like the worst thing since sliced bread. Maybe that's the wrong way I think it's supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread, but that's a terrible I don't even know what it is. What's the word for that? A terrible saying.
An idiom.
A terrible idiom, because sliced bread's not good. Like sliced white bread, it's terrible.
Not good for you. Why is there
good,
sugar in bread? I don't
you.
know. Maybe you need it to be in there, but like there's so much sugar in bread.
So much sugar in bread, but also
so
just
weird.
Sliced white bread. That's the last bread I'm going to try to put on a sandwich. But point being, Cliff Kingsbury can design a run scheme, and they've done a great job despite not having a lot of talent. I think part of that is Jaden Daniels, but part of that is Cliff. So I think that will continue despite what's on that offensive line from a talent standpoint.
Okay, we got Washington at 6. We got the Jacksonville Jaguars at
the
5.
biggest surprise of the season by far.
Jacksonville Jaguars. They're the only team where like basically all sources are like, yep, top 6, top 7, put them in there, you know, like the freaking Jaguars. Jaguars are
Unreal.
fourth in ESPN run block win rate. They're 7th in adjusted yards before contact for the fantasy points data suite. And they're 6th in terms of the percentage of runs where they got to the line of scrimmage or beyond before initial contact.
And that's with Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, and Anton Harrison as their starting offensive line. That's insane to me.
Oh, the people know, Dan. You listed that group off 15 times during draft season.
Yeah, I just can't believe it. How is that group generating this much push?
They're 6th in no, that's not right. Sorry. Overall, where are they at in success rate? 9th in success rate on running back runs. We've seen the big plays from ETN, and we've seen just tons of successful runs from our boy Bashal Tootin. I think he's 1 or 2 on the year in running back success rate. Overall, they come in 9th.
Has he had a negative run yet?
No, sir.
Let's go.
As a professional, no negative touches for Bashal Tootin preseason or regular season.
Unreal.
A lot of zone runs, a lot of under center runs, motion. It's the stuff that we've come to know.
Stuff.
Yeah, from Liam. This next one, I'm very curious to give me a little bit of filibuster on this one, because I gotta adjust something here on my numbers.
No
I noticed was off. The Buffalo Bills are 1st in win rate per ESPN, but they're only 22nd in adjusted yards before contact, and 15th in terms of the percentage of runs where the running back got to the line of scrimmage before initial contact, which typically James Cook is like Mr. Yards before contact.
Mm-hmm.
It's like him and Jahmyr Gibbs, where it's like they're not getting as many yards after contact as these other elite backs. Like, are they actually elite? And it's like, yes, obviously, watch them, you know? But like this is kind of weird that they're not getting as many yards before contact. Do you have any thoughts on the Buffalo run game?
Yeah, Bills were 7th in yards created last season, so I'm not surprised to see you have them ranked this high on your rankings. I think part of this is design. Joe Brady, since he got to Buffalo, has been really good at designing the run game. He doesn't have the reputation of Liam Cohen or of a Ben Johnson, but he, in my opinion, is well up there with them. Maybe third, fourth, fifth best designer of the run game, and Cliff Kingsbury as well. So this doesn't surprise me from that standpoint. And I think James Cook plays a factor in the success rate as well. Just really one of the best processing running backs in the NFL at point blank right there, full stop. So it's a combination of those things, I think.
So this is a fair ranking, you think, or does it?
Very fair ranking.
Okay, I was
If
gonna say
anything,
maybe they should be lower, and we should give more credit to
No.
James Cook. Okay,
No, because they also do have players on that. And like, who's the guy they got out of Florida? I'm trying to remember a couple years ago. I'm going to look it up right now. I'm blanking on his name. The interior guy out of Florida, Osiris Torrance. Loved his tape at Florida. I was like, this dude will develop into an amazing player. And even like Connor McGovern, they brought in to play center. Like, he's been excellent from what I've read. So I think they do have talent up front as well. But I think a lot of it is scheme. A lot of it is Joe Brady and James Cook. But that's fine. Like, there is reason for me to believe it will remain that way.
all right. Number 4, Buffalo Bills, first in win rate. Number 3, Minnesota Vikings,
There we go.
KOC, my man. He's been talking about it all summer, and he finally got it. He's wanted a good run game.
Boy,
for
does
so
he need
long.
it with Wentz and McCarthy at quarterback. Boy, does he need it.
The Vikings have a 53% rushing success rate on running back runs, which is behind only the Falcons, the Bills, the Cowboys, and the Rams.
And that's with Darrisaw in for only one game.
Yep, that's a good point. And that's with 30% of the runs where they got hit behind the line of scrimmage. That's a really high number. That's the 10th worst number. I think like Darrisaw being in there is going to be huge. Teams have keyed on the run against them. And there have been plays where they've been able to just blow runs up and make them just like a dead play. But overall, it's been a successful run game. And if you look at like the percentage of runs where they got to the line of scrimmage or beyond, they're actually 8th best in that stat, So it's a weird mix here where like some plays are getting shot down, but there are still more plays that have been good. They're also 4th in adjusted yards before contact. I almost made them number 1 in these rankings just for fun. Like they're right there.
I wouldn't put it past them. I didn't watch every offensive line. You gave me cut-ups of offensive line. This was by far and away the most in-sync offensive line I watched as far as climbing to the second level, sealing off runs on outside zone and toss crack. I just think they do even the double teams up front and some of the inside zone plays were just excellent. Their interior play has taken such a jump, really. Like, just getting rid of Garrett Bradbury to me was a addition by subtraction, and then adding Will Fries to the interior was an excellent move for them. So all wheels up for them, especially with Darrisaw coming back. That's just going to be a massive boom. Like, that makes them even better.
Yeah, they might be number 1. Number 2, Dallas Cowboys.
Imagine if they still had Sam Darnold as well as he's playing. Like, honestly.
Yeah. Dallas Cowboys 2nd. They're 8th in win rate. They're 10th in adjusted yards before contact. They're 5th in the percentage of runs where the running back got to the line of scrimmage before contact. Only 39% of the runs did they get hit behind the line of scrimmage. This run game is working really well. Javonte is just taking it straight ahead and running it down people's throats. They face the Eagles. Who else? They've got the Packers this week, which is going to be a real test. They face the Eagles, the Giants, and the Bears.
Things will take a step back too with CeeDee Lamb off the field for 4 weeks. It just changes how you can scheme against them. They're going to start rotating safeties down into the box more often because they don't have to play cloud coverage over the top of Lamb. They're going to start just designing different defense. Like, you're not going to see a defense designed to take away one player, and that player being CeeDee Lamb. So I do think they'll take a step back. But the Cowboys, man, 2 things. I've given Schottenheimer, their coach, Brian Schottenheimer, a lot of flack in the past for his play calling, specifically his sequencing of plays. And I still don't think he's great in that regard. But he has always designed successful run games, and that's really his calling card. That's how he got the job, and he even said it last year. And we saw it last year with Dowdle in the second half, despite playing with Cooper Rush. And in addition to that, the Cowboys are the most committed team in the NFL to replenishing the talent on their offensive line. Look no further than drafting Tyler Booker this year at 14th overall. And Tyler Booker, Tyler Smith, Tyler Guyton. They have so much talent up front, despite losing two of their key players to retirement. And then obviously also Tyron Smith moving on. So I think it's a combination of a really talented offensive line and a head coach who understands how to design the run game. Do I think they're going to take a step back without Lamb? Yes. But other than that, I see no reason they shouldn't be ranked this high.
Yeah. It's working really well. They're a varied run game. They go under shotgun and under center. A really interesting stat on this run game is that 49% of their running back runs have gained 2 or more yards before initial contact, which is the highest in the league. If you look at the other teams that are above 40%, it's basically all outside zone specialists. Like we talked about, like outside zone's a little more like kind of boom bust. The Cowboys, their rate of outside zone is only 21%, 12%. So the other teams that have a 40+% rate of the runs getting 2 or more yards before contact are the Bills at 34% outside zone, the Bears at 48% outside zone, the Dolphins at 48% outside zone, the Falcons at 54% outside zone, the Jets at 46% outside zone.
Okay.
And then the Cowboys are 21%. So they're gaining chunk plays, like creating all this yards before contact, just running straight at you. That's so crazy to me.
Yeah, that's power. That's what they're doing. Power gap up front, inside zone duo, and they don't care, and they know they can. And also, it fits Javonte Williams. I think maybe if Jaden Blue eventually does become a part of this offense, we could see more outside zone and toss crack and things like that.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, number 1. You ready? You surprised at all? It's the Indianapolis Colts.
No surprise.
Jonathan Taylor just dominating.
They lost Will Fries too, and it doesn't matter.
Second, nothing matters. Literally nothing matters with the Colts. They just do whatever the hell they want. It's so weird.
It is.
We'll see how sustainable it is. But man, it's been pretty entertaining to watch. They get the Rams this week. I think they'll be able to run on them.
Who aren't they able to run on, like you said?
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor ran all over the Broncos, which that's kind of the way to try to beat this Broncos defense, if anything.
But it doesn't always work, despite that being the way. Yeah.
Ran all over the Titans last week. Yeah, it's second to win rate, 10th in the percentage of the runs where they're getting to the line of scrimmage before contact.
Like 2,300 rushing yards, Jonathan Taylor, which is obviously unsustainable, but hilarious.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they fall a little bit if some of these other teams pass them. Sure. Like the Cowboys are really kicking butt up front. The Vikings have been really exciting. Wouldn't it surprise me if we see some of this being like, okay, actually that was a lot of just Jonathan Taylor really being really, really good. But I like the scheme. I like the coaching there. And the players on the line are definitely capable of moving people. And that's exactly what we've seen.
Quentin Nelson's back to like the old Quentin Nelson this year, which has been really exciting to watch.
Yep. Alrighty. One more real quick read through, and you, Dan, insert at any time and let me know if something needs to move around.
Okay.
From 32, Bengals, Raiders, Giants, Packers, Steelers, Saints. Then we've got the Chiefs. I moved them back to 26. The 49ers, Titans, Chargers, Dolphins, Browns. We are now in our top 20. Seahawks, Texans, Jets, Cardinals, Ravens, Bucs, Panthers, Patriots. And now we are into our top 12, which is the Eagles, the Lions, the Falcons, the Rams, the Broncos, the Bears, the Commanders, the Jaguars, the Bills, the Vikings, the Cowboys, and the Indianapolis Colts, number 1. These are the best run games.
Yeah, and that's how it's been so far, and this is a projection moving forward for us as well. Teams I think could be on the rise. The Lions, as I mentioned, could get back up there into the top 5, I think for sure. The Eagles as well, potentially. I think we'll see the Texans drop a little off from where we're at right now with them, and the Niners take a step forward closer to where the Texans are.
Okay, I think so too. As I was reading through it, I was like, Texans seem too high.
Yeah, but they have been, so you got to give them credit for what they've done, and I think that you're right. A lot of that is the way Nick Chubb runs.
Yeah. Alrighty, good stuff. A different type of show for you guys today. I hope you like it. Hope it's not too boring or whatever. Like some of the stuff, I hope it's not like, I don't know, like esoteric is the word that is coming to my mind, and that's just feels like even more pretentious on top of what we're doing here. Where it's like this, like give me the takes. What are the takeaways? What am I supposed to do?
We worked in takeaways, I think, a lot
for sure. Yeah,
and so, I really enjoy this kind of show, man. This is like
a holistic approach to what's happening, guys.
It's something I always say on my other show. They're taking a 30,000 foot view. I love to take the 30,000 foot views. To me, it's the most fun things to talk. It's when we're just talking ball. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully this puts into context what you can expect from some of these run games moving forward and why some of these run games have been so successful, including which ones will be successful moving forward. We're going to keep updating this. I'm actually really, really excited to do something different next week, which is take a look at the pass protection, because I love watching just like some of these teams, man. You'll see them have 5 in protection, and yet the defenses are just rushing 4, but they're either using creepers or they're using simulated pressures. And despite only rushing 4 and dropping off the rest of the line of scrimmage, these offensive lines can't handle it at all. Just simple stunts in game. And that's why some of these teams just don't move the football and why we don't get fantasy points from these teams. It's literally as simple as that. They have 7 guys dropping in coverage, 4 rushing. You have 5 to protect, and you just can't do it. And it's impossible for these quarterbacks. So I'm excited to see the teams.
More defenses are doing it. Like every year, more defenses are doing it. That's what we're seeing with the Jaguars. Like they Panthers in week 1. And I
Yep.
remember watching that film and being like, oh my gosh, dude. Like,
Yeah.
this is, I mean, it's impressive. Like, I don't want to act like I would be able to figure out the protection plan for it, but like, I'm watching them like they're completely overwhelmed. Like, there's so
It's
many times
yes.
where they're completely overwhelmed by this.
It's the difference between the good and the bad offensive lines, the ones that just can communicate stunts and twists up front and the ones that can't. I really do believe that. And that's like, I watched the Jaguars. It was the kid who they took at number 1 overall a couple years ago, the Jaguars, the edge guy. Big
I know
project
his
out of
name,
Georgia.
yeah.
Not Travion. Damn, I'm blanking.
Walker.
Trayvon
Trayvon
Walker. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Trayvon Walker breakout year, like looking at the numbers, and it's like kind of, but also he's kind of just coming around on twists and stunts and getting free reign to the quarterback. And yes, that's partly due to his sick athleticism and his size speed combo, but it's also just games up front by the Jaguars defensive line coach that have been working on these opposing offensive lines so far. So I can't wait to do that one. I'm really excited. But thank you to everybody who tuned into today's Beyond the Box Score. This was a lot of fun for Jacob and I really hope you guys took something out of us. And if you do enjoy the show, please leave a rating and leave a review on iTunes and Spotify. That will really, really, really help us. And in addition to that, please go ahead and hit the like button on the show. If you haven't already, just click it. Go ahead. Hand over the mouse. Boom. You clicked like. Look at that. Now we're up to 500, 600, 700, 800, maybe 1,000 likes. It's so easy to do in my mind. And yet I look at these shows after Jacob and I see like 16,000 views. Awesome. I'm really excited. People enjoy our stuff. 300 likes on 16,000 views. The ratio just doesn't add up for me. And I'm trying
We're way above 300 likes. We get 1,000 likes sometimes. Thank you,
we do
good
get
people.
1,000 likes sometimes. And again, all the people who liked, I give you the credit and appreciation. But those who are watching and not liking, I do want to change your ways to help us grow. So I will.
We got the good cop, bad cop thing going on
It's
here.
a good cop, bad
Thank
cop.
you so much for all your reviews, you beautiful people.
Yeah.
Give us more, please. Where else you getting offensive line ranks in week 3? Please review. Thank you.
Agreed. And have a great rest of your week. Or day, I should say. We're coming back to you tomorrow. Jacob will be on. So talk to you later. Enjoy these offensive line rankings. And again, just one more note. If you do want to get these on paper or in paper form with some more added context from Jacob, please subscribe to the Fantasy Football Today newsletter. It's free, 100% free. And in my mind, the best newsletter out there. I'll shout out Ben Gretsch. His is awesome too, but Jacob's is the number 1. And let's just be clear about that. I'm sorry, Ben. I'm sorry, anyone who doesn't like that one. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.